Kia ora everyone, it is Bianca from Dreadlock Soldier here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I have been getting a lot of dreadlocks that look like this. Example. And I'm going to show you why that's happening and how to avoid that from happening. So if you are new to lock creation, or if you're a loctician and you see that this is happening quite a bit with your work also, grab your tools and I will show you how to prevent this from happening and how to create a really, really beautiful lock. So I've got my lovely model here, Becky 2.0. I'm just going to drag her down just a little bit. I've already done and made up my sections. I've initiated my lock using my 0.6 hook. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what I believe is happening that makes that big sort of bulky lock. Now the reason why I'm making this video is one, because I see a lot of it. I've had a lot of clients come in the last year or so with their locks looking like this. So one thing to bear in mind as locticians, your clients here in terms of like their section size, so especially when you like initiate the lock, you can sort of actually see how thick that lock is going to be. Yes, locks do change over the years. They can either get a little bit thinner, they can stretch out, or they can get thicker and expand. So use your discernment when it comes to section size and all that sort of stuff and your client's hair type, because that will sort of indicate how that lock is going to mature over time. But my point is that section size isn't going to change yet. It's not going to get bigger, it's not going to get smaller. So the amount of hair in that section is going to continue to grow out. So if you are back combing too much, you have pushed like all of this hair up into like a small dense area, which is why you get that big bulky sort of bulbous look. For the first like maybe 6 months, maybe to a year, it would look all right because it's up close to the scalp, but as time goes on and the hair grows out, it's gonna start to like, you're gonna eventually get like this bulky lock that comes out, and then like I said, that section doesn't change. So you're gonna have a skinny lock from all your maintenance and upkeep to this big bulky lock where you first created the dreadlock. I hope that makes sense. So let me just demonstrate what I think is happening, and then the technique that I use to prevent that from happening. If you are wanting to learn more or journey deeper with locks and the whole lock creation process, world, realm, right down to history and culture and all the things in between, I actually run an online course, and I can drop that in the little description below. So this is what I think is happening. I think a lot of locticians are relying quite heavily on their comb to back comb, which again is like, it's not wrong, but there's just better ways to make the locks just look a little bit nicer. So what I think is happening is that we are back combing quite a lot. As you can see, we're going all the way up. And this is like, again, what I see quite a lot, predominantly online, especially when you go into like YouTube and learn how to create locks via YouTube. I'm seeing a lot, a lot of this. Now look at the difference. That's like half of the length gone. And I can guarantee you 95% of your clients are gonna effing hate that. A lot of people spend years growing their hair out to have dreadlocks, and then they walk out with stumps. I hear this time and time again. Again, unless your client wants that, then by all means do that. But this is something that a lot of people fear and don't want when they get their locks. So as you can see already, just from all that back combing, we've lost half of the length already. I'm not too sure if this hook is then involved in this process, but again, just something that I would then do to sort of initiate the lock is going in with my 3 hooked hook. I call it a threefer. I don't really know what else to call that. But that just sort of adds a little bit more texture into the lock as well. I find it also helps pull in a lot of the loose hairs into the middle. And it's just a great way to get the lock sort of like starting to form into shape. And then of course we go in with our smaller single hook just to really tighten all that up. So already like I can feel like how bulky this lock is already. I'll bring it a little bit closer. How about that? Oops. Yeah. You don't really need to see me, do you? So again, in order for this to be like an actual like nice shape consistently, you know, to taper it nicely so it's not big skinny, or weak spots, you know, you're actually doing this again quite a lot. And I feel this sort of only ends up making the lock even thicker and bigger. And then you can see the lock then gets very thin at the end. If your client wanted like those rounded blunt ends, then I would then take that loose hair and then get that crocheted in. But that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this. I'm seeing a really long, skinny ass tapered end. And again, that in time is going to snap off. It's going to come off like after some washes, or maybe if the hair is like, you know, a little bit thinner. But it gives it a reason to want to snap off. So that's probably, I probably could go in a little bit more with the 3-fer. Again, if you want to know a little bit more about technique and sort of just go a little bit deeper with this whole process, my online course is the one to go for. We cover everything lock related. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my technique that I use when it comes to really just stitching that lock together and tucking in all those loose hairs and starting to create a bit more of a lock shape out of it now. Sort of feel like how when something's back combed like this, just a little bit of inconsistency in the actual lock itself. When I'm creating locks, I'm very like hands on everything, and that way I can feel exactly what I'm doing, right down to like almost each individual strand of hair. I tell my students I do a bit of in-person training as well. I do like an 8-week, 2-day-a-week in-person training courses also. And I tell a lot of my students that the lock creation is about 70% touch and then 30% actually looking and sighting what it is that you're doing. But this art form really gets you sort of like tuned into your body and the things that you are feeling. And I think that's really important to feel where the hair is going. Obviously, you need to look at it also to see what your final result is, but you really need to feel with your fingers. Again, I don't wear any sort of protection or rubber or tape or anything like that on my fingers because I like to feel where the hair is. I also find if you're wearing, you know, rubber things on your fingers or tape or whatever, it sort of gives it sort of tricks your mind into giving you permission to go even harder. And then I feel that's just where injuries show up, either in your wrists or, you know, when you stab yourself in the finger with your hook. Which does happen from time to time. I have definitely stabbed myself quite a lot over the years, sometimes really bad. But I've actually soon come to realize that that's only happening when I'm overworked, tired, and just really actually not paying attention, not concentrating on what I'm doing. So I've sort of gone back up now and just pulled in some hairs in there too. And just finishing off this end. Go back home it a bit more. So by going in with my single hook, I have managed to sort of like be able to stretch it out a little bit, but you can already see like how big and bulky that lock is. Especially towards the top there. She's looking quite bulky. So I'll bring her in a little bit closer here now. You can see the size of that lock, and then the size difference in the length of the hair. So it has tapered a little bit. There's some wispy bits on the end there. If you want to say it's close to length, I guess maybe you could. But again, if we were to taper that end, especially, I always find it's always the male clients that prefer the more rounded blunt ends. So if we were to then blunt that, then I can't even get the whole strand in the picture. So about there, if we were to blunt it, and then you can see the remainder of the length. Tape open ends, but I mean, that is such a thin wispy end compared to like the density of that lock. Okay, so that's what I believe is happening with that bulky. So now I'm going to show you how to do it predominantly with your hooks, and this is a really fantastic way of maintaining the length. And again, like I said, see how bulky that is there? And that section is probably going to come out with about maybe this width. I'm looking at it. When you look at that width to this width, it's about the same. So as my client's hair grows, it's going to be this width, and then that bulky bit is going to stay there, yeah? And it's going to keep coming out, and you're going to have a thin lock, thick lock, down to a very skinny tapered lock. Not consistent, doesn't look the best. It might look good for the first 6 months, but after 2-3 years, it's going to look like crap. Okay, so you are still going to use your comb because you need to create some texture, yeah? But we're not going handy on it. Just very, very lightly. That is it. That is about as much back combing as I do. It's only really so I have some texture for this bad boy to go in. And again, I start from the bottom and then I work my way up. See, already starting to create some shape. I usually do this step 3 or 4 times over. Again, that all depends on the texture of my client's hair. It also depends if my client has like just washed their hair as well. I try to be on top of it when people come in for their dreads, just to let them know to wash their hair maybe like 4 or 5 days before their appointment. You actually want like a little bit of grit with your lock making process. If the hair is too soft and silky and freshly cleaned, it's actually a lot harder. It can still be done, but it's a lot more tedious, and you'll find yourself having to repeat certain processes a few times over, and then that just, more than anything, it it gets hard on your hands as a loctician and all your wrists. But then it can also be, quite intense on your client's head, having to go over and over and over. So I actually like people coming in with slightly dirty hair, not dirty hair, please wash your hair, but a little bit of dirt and a little bit of grit is really, really good. And then obviously your more like textured hair, coarse hair, thicker hair really takes to the locking process into your hooks quite well. So as you can see, we're getting a bit more shape here now. I don't know how many times over I've done that. This might be the 5th time, I think. And see how consistent that shape is? Like it's actually quite nicely tapered compared to a big sort of bulky start at the top there. Okay, now I'm going to go in with my single hook. Again, I am using a 0.6, starting from the top, and then working my way down. So again, like hook size is really important. I only work with, I'm just going to clip that out of the way, bugging me. I only work with 0.6 and 0.5. Anything bigger than that, I feel like you're probably going to do more damage than good. I have yet to find a 0.4, but when I do, I'll let you all know, because I'm always keen to go smaller more than anything. A 0.4 for like really fine hair would probably be really good. However, you would just use a smaller hook, yeah? So a 0.5 would be really good for your clients that have quite thin, fine hair or fragile hair. And your 0.6 I would use for more medium, thick to coarse hair and textured hair as well. I also find this way I'm not really having to go up and down the lock with this technique a few times over like I would with the other one, just because it was so thick and bulky, and you're really having to pull a lot of the hair into the middle. This is, you know, sort of a once over. Having said that, my mannequin does have synthetic hair and it's a lot easier to work with. And now I'm just going up the lock, really feeling where my hook is. I actually just ever so slightly rotate the hair in my hand, in my left hand, so my hand that doesn't have the hook in it. So I'm making sure that I'm pulling hair from all angles into the center of that lock. There we go. And then always when you're done, you can sort of just assess the lock. If there's like a little strand of hair or a bit that's still sticking out, just pop your lock in, loop it over, and then really work that bit of hair into the middle of the lock. So there we go. You can see how nicely tapered that is. Just put my thing away. This was about your neck, hun. See that? Nice and consistent, no big bulkiness. It actually tapers beautifully, and all that new growth that's going to come out of that section is going to be the same size. So as time goes on and my client's hair grows out, it's going to look the same. It's going to be the same thickness all the way. Obviously it's going to taper a little bit at the end, but you know, there won't be a thin bit, bulky bit back to a thin bit. And we've managed to keep, you know, the length as well, which is always a bonus. So side by side. Oh, her head just came off. Are you okay? Okay, side by side. You can see a size difference there. Again, if your client wants thicker locks, yeah, cool, whatever, back comb it, but you could just make bigger sections, because like I said, the whole point of this exercise is to show you that, you know, as time goes on, that section's not going to change, yeah? That same amount of hair is going to grow out, so it's going to be that size, not this size. It's not going to come out that size, it's going to grow out. It's going to come out that size. I hope this all makes sense. But you can see the difference there. Nice long length. We are sort of really technically losing the length like there. But yeah, a much more slicker, consistent size. And just for teaching's sake, there's a bit of the hair there. So we can see exactly that it is kept the length. Again, obviously, if your client wants open ends like that, which a lot of clients these days do, seems to be the fashion. But obviously you could continue to crochet that and taper it even more, and then you'd probably only lose like maybe a teeny tiny bit at the end there. But I hope that makes sense. I hope you can understand the message of this video. Yeah, if you're a loctician, let me know what you think, if that was useful. And again, if you are starting out with locks, or you want to become a loctician for whatever reason, you want to start a business, or you just want to learn something new, I have an online course available. It is 10 modules deep, and we go from history and culture and spiritual significance from all different cultures from around the world, to your tools, to your technique, lock creation process, extensions, lock removal, and literally everything in terms of running a lock business or being a loctician. So if that's feeling right for you, then have a look in the description below. I'll put all the details there. But yeah, I will catch you in the next one. Hope that was helpful. I hope that was awesome. Hope it was awesome. I hope that was awesome, and I hope that was helpful, and I will catch you in the next one. Until then, ka kite anō. Mwah.